Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's lecture on the game design process. The game design process is very important for getting a game from ideation to finalization to release. There are a couple of steps that we're going to go through, and I'm going to talk about them from ideation, prototyping, playtesting, iteration and refinement, the iterative game process or the iterative design process, which we may have talked about, may have seen in the syllabus and other course content, and then eventually getting to finalizing the game. So let's start with ideation. So this is where you develop your concept. You have an idea for a cool game. You want to put it together and create a final product. So you're going to start with brainstorming, finding your idea, creating kind of a concept for the mechanics and the genre of the game, the theme of the game. It's all deciding what kind of game you want to make. And then once you know kind of the broadest strokes of what you're looking to do, you start kind of whittling down and creating an actual concept of the game. Where you want to develop your rules, develop the goals of the game, the mechanics that you want to include and how those affect gameplay, things like that. And then you can kind of wrap it in the theme, the tone of the game, whether this is a cooperative game or a player versus player game, or whether the game has a fantasy feel or a sci-fi feel, things like that. This all goes into kind of the initial concept phase of the game. Next, the next stage is prototyping, and I'm going to focus a little bit on this because you're going to be doing this week. Prototyping is building the roughest draft of the game so that you can play it and see what works and what doesn't. You'll start with gathering all of your materials, the different pieces, the board, things that you'll need to play the game, making up mock versions of those things so that you can visualize what's happening while you play. Using those materials, then you write down the rules, come up with the setup for the board, and basically be ready to play the game when it's finished. And then you got to play. You got to play this game. Again, this is very rough draft. Things aren't going to work. Things are. You're going to come up with better ideas while you play. But the first time you play your game, you're wanting to make sure that the game can be completed, can start and end, whether there's a winner determined or a goal that's met. You want to make sure that there is a through line from beginning to end that a player can get to. You want to make sure all of your rules work, all of your mechanics work, and it is the beginning of cohesion for the game design. Prototyping does not have to look pretty. It does not have to be polished. The example in this slide is some playtest cards from the original alpha set for Magic the Gathering. These were literal slips of paper. I believe they're a little bit of cardstock that they printed out and stamped these images on, and had very basic descriptions of what the cards did. Over time, while they were playtesting the game, the development team for Magic just wrote straight on these changes that they make to the cards. But the idea was that they were able to take these, mass produce them so that they can, put any combination of cards together and make sure they all work. And they didn't have to look pretty. Nobody was going to see them. And now, eventually, you get to the final product that you see before you, or below the first image. Speaking of playtesting, that's the next step. This is the start of the iterative design process. You have to make sure that the game plays the way that you want it to. So you need to have groups of people play your game and give you feedback. You need to see and identify which areas in your game have weaknesses, whether it's weaknesses in the rules, things that you didn't account for, whether it's mechanics that don't work together, or whether it's balance where there's a certain strategy that you didn't expect to see was incredibly powerful, or there is a thing that you wanted to have happen in your game that just doesn't happen because it doesn't work. Whether fairness isn't present in your game for one reason or another. You want to take very descriptive notes on all these things and get feedback from the players so they can give you not just ideas on how to make the game better, but understanding of what things worked and what things didn't mechanically. And now after that, you're going to get into your iterative design process. So this is, I guess, could also be considered alpha testing, where you will make revisions to your rule set, make add or remove mechanics, rebalance things, change numbers, add values to things that will change the overall landscape of your gameplay. And then this is going to then go right back into another playtesting session. Every time that you make an update to the rule set or to the components of your game, you want to test it out and make sure that that thing works. And if it didn't, you can take it back and try something else, see if that works. And you're going to continue to do that until things get to a polished state to where you're happy with it. During this process, it's very important that you document everything that you do. This is taking note of feedback from your playtesters, keeping a log of any changes that you made to the rules or to the gameplay, keeping full backups of your game files. If you're designing things in image editing software or in a Word document, keep backups of each version as you change it to make sure that if something goes wrong, or if you decide that this one thing you actually really did like in your game, you can revert back to it and pull it into your most recent version. In professional game design, in video game design anyway, version control is the most important thing to make sure that if anything were to happen, if anything were to change drastically, you could always take a step back and see what happened in previous versions and bring that forward if you need to. I thought I had another slide. The last part that we want to talk about is finalizing. So when you're actually happy with everything that was play tested and iterated and changed, then you put together the final product, write a rulebook, find your art assets and your different components, your meeples or your pawns, things that you need for the game, come up with all of your design ideas, and then package that into a complete product. Again, whether this is just a personal design that you just want to play with your friends, or if you're looking to market it, those finishing touches will really show off that the game is complete. And if it is for sale, then you go into things such as marketing and distribution and things like that. And you want to make sure that you have a final product before you start doing those things, so that it reflects what customers can expect to find when they buy your game. So this week, and I'll go back to talk a little bit about prototyping again. This week, what I want everybody to do is to take a game design idea, something the game that you want to make. If you started in this class and you say, I wanted to make this type of game, and put together a prototype for it. Again, it doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't even have to look good. It could be just like magic cards, a bunch of slips of paper with words on them. Whatever will allow you to play your game from start to finish for the first time. to see if the rules that you've come up with and the mechanics that you've come up with actually work in the way that you want them to. This will all be laid out in the prototype design syllabus or rubric for the project, but we want to make sure when you do prototyping that all of the materials that you've put together, all of the rules that you've written, the mechanics and everything are documented and submitted to the course space so that we can so that I can see kind of where you're going with your original idea. Also important to keep those for yourself because we are going to expand upon this prototype throughout the course of this class. So I can't wait to see what you guys come up with this week, and I will talk to you guys next week.